So, welcome to the Getting Started webinar this morning. My name is Natalie. I'm the project manager on the Mightycause side of the house for Midlands Gives. Really excited to get to meet you all virtually today, have a conversation about how to register for the event, how to use the new platform that you have access to. Really exciting just to be able to finally get to kind of meet and talk with some of the nonprofit admins. So, today our conversation is a webinar style format, which just means that you'll see some of us on screen with admin permissions that can share our screen. We can unmute ourselves and talk, but for most of the people attending today, you will be muted. Just kind of helps to keep things a little bit organized, as some of you are in your offices, some of you are working from home, and we all know what it feels like to have some background noise. Don't be surprised if at some point my cat jumps up here and makes an appearance. And with my virtual background, you'll see a tail come in and out, but I'll do my best to not let him be totally distracting. But my last little spiel. So, one, this is a common question. We are recording the conversation that we're having today. So, my goal will be that by end of day today, if not probably by like lunch tomorrow, I'll have this recording up and available on the trainings page for Midlands Gives. It just sometimes with YouTube can take a little bit longer to render. So, I like to give myself a little bit of time when I tell you how long it'll take. And the slide deck that we use for the conversation today will also be available for those of you who are more of a, step-by-step kind of learner over there. So it looks like we actually had someone just report in saying that they're having trouble with audio. So can I have anybody else chat in if you're able to hear me successfully and you're just a regular attendee of the webinar? Okay. Awesome. Perfect. Thank you. So, Sandra, if anybody on the Midlands teams wants to chat with her directly and maybe see if what's going on with the audio, but it sounds like most people can hear, so that's good. And then the last thing that I was going to say before I pass it over to the Midlands teams for a quick kind of introduction is because we are the webinar style format, the way that you're going to communicate with us is obviously through the webinar chat and then through Q&A. So I would say that if you want to talk amongst yourselves and have, good conversation about any best practices, things like that, the chat is going to be the best place to go. If you have direct conversations or direct questions for myself or the Midlands Gives team, if you can use the Q&A specifically, that really helps us keep things broken up, and that way we make sure we don't miss any questions. My goal will be if you have a question and it's relevant in the time where it comes up and I can take a second to address it, I will do so in the Q&A, but also know we are going to have a full question and answer session at the end too. So I'm not ignoring anything that doesn't get answered, just kind of for purposes of time, I might skip over some things. So I think that's my whole hello and getting ready spiel. So I'll pass it over to Midlands to do theirs and then we'll get started.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much, Natalie. I hope you all are staying very warm. And thank you again for joining us for this second training of our Midlands Gives learning series, which is getting started with Mightycause. And a lot of you may also know it as the new portal navigation. So I am Amber Westbrook, I'm program officer with Central Carolina Community Foundation, working very closely with capacity building for nonprofits. And today we also have Chantrell Mitchell with us, and you all should be very familiar with Chantrell. And she is running our Midlands Gives platform, and she is everything, all questions Midlands Gives. So she is going to be helping answer questions in the chat. And with us today, we also have our VP of Community Impact. This is Erin Johnson with us today. So she will also be assisting us with questions throughout. And thank you again so much, Natalie, for the wonderful housekeeping. And without further ado, please take it away.
Wonderful. Cool. So I think what I'm going to do really quickly, how fun, is I just launched a poll that helps me understand who is in the call today. Obviously, I'm somewhat talking to you all live, but also knowing that I'm going to be having a group of people watching this as a recording, but helpful for me to understand, are you a returning organization and returning admin? Are you a returning organization but a new admin? Or do we have some people on the call today too that might be new to Midlands Gives or kind of checking it out, and you're using this as an opportunity to learn and see, what to do next. So there's just a few points throughout the conversation that I'm going to be touching on some things and some small nuances that might be helpful that I can, have a direct note to something that's more relevant to one of these groups. So Awesome. Looks like we have most people have participated. And I know there's a lot of people on the call that maybe this doesn't apply to. So I'm going to assume that most people who can answer have answered. So it looks like we have the majority of folks that were able to answer the poll are a returning organization and they are returning admin. So welcome. We're so happy to have you back. I know part of the conversation today is you know how a fundraising campaign works, you know how Midlands Gives works, but you're really just looking to see what's this new technology all about? What are some nuances that I need to know so I can be successful? And then we have 17% are returning organizations, but you're a new admin. So welcome to your team and to Midlands Gives as well. Happy to show you the ropes over here. And then we have about 8% who are completely new to Midlands Gives. So you actually have the upper hand here because you're learning a new platform and not having to kind of put the old one behind you and learn a new one. So you get to, learn along with everybody else. So awesome. Thank you all for answering. So let's go ahead and get started. Our main agenda for today and my main goal is one, to teach you how to register. And I realize that usually that's a question I ask to see if people on the call have already registered themselves. So we'll talk about this in a second, but registration officially launched yesterday. So, welcome. Get to it if you haven't so far, and I'll show you how to do that. So, how to register. Our next is how to navigate your organization dashboard. So, what's new about Mightycause when it comes to just being able to build out your organization page? How do I get things to look right so that donors who are now being driven to the new Mightycause version of the site are seeing what you want them to see, and any kind of, settings and things that you need to get in front of now that we're kind of up and launched. And then we'll have a section for Q&A. So before we really dive into that, I also wanted to mention that, and I'll have a slide about this, but we are going to do a webinar too with Mightycause that talks more about peer-to-peer fundraising, matching grants, how to utilize your reporting better for you to have more success. And so just know that it's very intentional that today's conversation is kind of like an open house. So it's welcome to my house. Come in, let me show you what's going on in here. Make sure that you're feeling comfortable, that you know how to kind of navigate the new technology. And then our next webinar coming up on February 26th, I believe, and I have a slide about it, but that one will be more about how do I use these tools. So just wanted to kind of level set with everyone so you know the expectations for our conversation this morning. So let's go ahead and talk about getting started. So one of the first things, right, that we need to do in order to even participate in Midlands Gives is make sure that we have ourselves registered for the 2026 event. So I am going to do a decent amount of kind of jumping back and forth between our slide deck, but then also the live site, because I find that that's sometimes more beneficial to people that are learning and can kind of poke along with me. So let's go ahead and look at the live organization site, and we will, oops, sorry about that. Let's go to Midlands Gives over here. Talk about how to register. So we are here on the Midlands Gives site. If we come into for nonprofits and we click on how to join, we're going to see a nice page that kind of talks about, what are the benefits of joining Midlands Gives? What are some things that I need to do? What are my eligibility requirements? I can link out and see the nonprofit participation agreement. And then I have our important dates. And as I scroll down, I find this button that allows me to register today. And so this takes me to the main registration form page for Midlands Gives. What I want to draw attention to first is that there are important kind of nuanced instructions depending on what your organization type is. And so you can see them here broken out into 3 different really easy drop downs for you to figure out how you identify. First and foremost is that your organization has participated in Midlands Gives in the past. And so if this doesn't, when we're first reading through this, doesn't necessarily, define or matter whether or not you are a returning admin or a new admin. We're just thinking, is my organization returning? If so, click here and read these registration instructions specific to your org. Second is that you are new to Midlands Gives and you are a verified 501c3 with the IRS. Click here, read through those registration instructions. And then last but not least is that you are a new organization for Midlands Gives and you might be fiscally sponsored, or perhaps you are a local chapter of a national or kind of larger organization. Then you need to click here and then view these instructions. So The registration process is fairly simple. As we scroll down, we find our organization, we select it, we answer the registration questions, we submit the registration fee, we land into pending. I'll talk about that in a second. But how you go about doing that is really a little bit different depending on what your organization qualifies as when it comes to these three instructions. So that's my first really big important kind of note, is to make sure you don't gloss over this and that you click on the expandable dropdown and read those instructions for your organization type. And then the second little nuance that's in here, and it's a little bit more relevant for this first year when we're working, when we've just migrated you over from the old platform onto the new platform, is there's a little bit of a nuance if you are a returning organization and you are a returning administrator as well. So please read through these instructions here, because if your user account was migrated over from the old platform, you're actually going to want to go in and you will reset your password following the instructions that are right here, because we've pulled over things relevant to your user account, but we haven't pulled over that password just for security purposes. So you'll reset your password. If you are one of the people on the call today that said that you are a returning organization but a new administrator, then you'll follow these instructions here, where you're essentially just setting up a new user account and then finding your organization to be able to register it. So little nuances, nothing that I think is really going to trip a lot of people up, but I think important to call attention to, because those are probably some differences from the registration process that you've experienced in the past. So again, just make sure that you read these thoroughly, depending on how you qualify with these three kind of drop downs. So that was kind of the important housekeeping of registration. And the next is, what's expected when it comes to the registration flow. So the registration process for Midlands Gives is kind of a two-part event, or I guess three kind of. Is first is we're going to come through here, we'll find our organization, we will answer the registration survey questions, which should feel pretty familiar to those of you who have participated in the past. The next is that you will be prompted to pay the required registration fee in order to submit your registration. And then everyone who submits their registration will land in a pending status. So you'll automatically get an email to your email address on file that you used when you logged in and registered your org, letting you know that you are currently pending and telling you any next steps that you need to know. And then following the review from the Community Foundation team, you will receive an official email usually it's a couple business days, letting you know whether or not your organization has been officially approved or declined. So that is the expected process for registration on Mightycause. Is you complete that form, you pay the fee, and that's what allows you to submit it. Everybody will be in pending, and then following a review from the Community Foundation team, you'll get that official email notification letting you know if you're approved or declined. So pretty straightforward, but wanted to touch on that because I know there might be a couple, changes from what your expectations were in the past. So that's what that process is going to look like. And then next, let's talk about, so you have registered yourself and you are now approved to participate in Midlands Gives. Moving forward, how do I access my dashboard and how do I get in? What are the new things about Mightycause? Let's see behind the curtain now that you have access. What does that organization dashboard look like for you? So once you are approved to participate, if you come back to the Midlands Gives website, so that's your first access point. So let's say we've done our registration, we've got our approval. Now moving forward, maybe it's a week later and I'm coming in, I want to start making, edits to my organization page. So your first place that you're going to go is the Midlands Gives website. And in the top right corner, you're actually going to see the option to log in. I'm logged in today because I need to in order to go through the demo, but you would see an option here that says log in. You would click on that and then you would see the login screen where you'll put in your email and the password that you set for your user account. And then once you've logged in, you will now see your name in the top right corner. You'll click on your name and then you will come down and there'll be a section that shows you the organizations you manage, and you will click on that organization to access your organization dashboard. So we have a little screenshot here of what that will look like. So let's say my name is Ella, I click on Ella, and then under my organization section, I'll see the organizations I manage and I can click on that and it will take me directly to my organization dashboard. So for the purposes of our call today, I am going to play around in our demo environment. That way I make sure I'm not showing you anything that I shouldn't be showing you. And it gives me full access to kind of poke around and pretend I'm an organization admin just like you, so we can see what each other see. So I have gone through that process, right, where I've registered myself. I have been put in pending. I'm waiting very patiently for the Community Foundation team to review. I get my email that says that I am approved. I'm super excited. Now I come to Midlands Gives. I've logged myself in and I'm on my organization page and I can see my organization dashboard is showing here. So this is where you can really start building out everything, reviewing for what your profile is going to look like right now and in the future for Midlands Gives. So we have done, right, a migration of content for organizations that existed on the previous platform that we brought over here to Mightycause. So for those of you who are returning, who participated on the old platform, you will see that parts of your organization profile have been brought over. So, you might land on a page where you already have your logo. You might have a header image already. There might already be, content in your about section. For those of you who are brand new, it's very likely that you might land on this page and a lot of this is blank and now you need to build it out from scratch. Regardless of what situation you're in, fairly simple and fairly quick to be able to build out this page. Before I get going too much, though, I want to start with we'll just go over some of these tabs that I think are going to be, the most relevant as you start this initial kind of like build out process. So again, we've landed on our organization page. If I come up here in this overview tab, this is where it's going to have, and so this is demos. We have a little bit of fun that pops up here when I try to give these reviews, but this is your overview tab. And so this is where you're going to see kind of high level overview of what your fundraising efforts are through your organization page. And so again, we know that we have this kind of year-round giving ability on Midlands Gives. There's also the Midlands Gives, events themselves. And then for some of you who, might be participating in other fundraising efforts on Mightycause, just know that this page itself is going to be relevant to whatever you're doing right now. So it would be inclusive of, let's say that, you're doing year-round fundraising on Midlands Gives, but you might have something else going on as far as a fundraising event and you're using your page for it. That's where you would see all these totals would show up as far as, what online donations are happening, how many unique donors. For those of you who don't have a lot of activity going on right now, it might be expected that you'd come here and you'd see zeros for a lot of these. But just know that as you start to drive donors to your page to accept donations, these tiles will start to get a little bit more interactive. But one of the most important things on this page I wanted to draw attention to is actually going to be up here in this section. So one is your to-do list, and the second is actually your participation in Midlands Gives. So please use a little bit of an imagination right now, but I might actually have a screen here that I can show you. Okay, perfect. So I did a good job of taking screenshots when I knew it wouldn't show up in demo. So most of you are going to land on your organization dashboard page, on your overview page, and there's going to be a section here that talks about the Midlands Gives registration. So if your organization has not submitted a registration form for Midlands Gives, your notification is going to look like this. So it's prompting you to say that registration is open and it's telling you that you can register now. So if you click on that button, it will actually take you to the page where the registration form is housed for Midlands Gives. So that's a really great kind of notification that if I'm an admin, I land on my page and this is the message I see, then that's saying to me, oh, I haven't registered yet. I need to make sure that gets going. Another version of this message you might see is that you have submitted your registration and it will tell you your status is currently pending. Or you might see something similar to this other giving event where it will tell you your organization is registered for, and it would say Midlands Gives. So that's kind of the first most important place that if you're curious and you're like, oh, I can't remember if, Joe went in and registered us or if that was my responsibility, take a look at that overview tab of your organization page. And that's where you'll be able to see, have we not submitted yet? Are we currently pending or have we already been approved? So that's probably the most important spot for you to see that update about what's your current registration status. The next thing that you will see that I was just showing you is your to-do list. And so we have a built-in feature on the Mightycause platform that, we reviewed with the Community Foundation team of, certain things that we thought would be helpful for you as an organization to build out on your page in order for donors to have the most positive experience when they access your organization page. Your to-do list will look slightly different than this one that we see in demo, but similar concept. So you're going to see a couple steps that we have marked as required and recommended for you to be able to complete. Most of them are really simple and are, I think you would probably agree, are very beneficial for you to complete. So, completing your organization page, right? The importance of making sure when a donor lands on your page, they're seeing a logo that is affiliated with your branding, right? They're seeing a cover image that makes sense for what your organization does. They're looking down at your about content and they're seeing a story that is relevant to the work that your organization does in the community, right? We all live in a world where we're constantly trying to figure out, is this a phishing experience? Is this real? Like, is this text message real? Did I land on the right website? And so we want to make sure that we're building out that donor trust, right? And that they're landing on a page that looks and feels like your organization and gives them the information they need in order to make that decision to donate to you and, to use their funds to support your organization. Another one on here, and I won't go into all of these, but going through and deciding how you want to receive your disbursements from the Mightycause platform, setting up the content that's on your thank you page. So again, yours will be a slightly different for Midlands Gives, but similar kind of concept. And the other thing I wanted to show you here is that it is a smart to-do list. So let's say, that we needed to still go through and complete our organization page. If I click on that, one, it will open up kind of a larger version of the to-do list so I can see everything that goes into that step. So, I need to add my logo, my banner image, my about section. If there's anything that's not complete and I click on it, it'll actually take me to that part on my organization dashboard where that step needs to be complete. So not only is it kind of a helpful tool prompting you to go through and take things off of your checklist when it comes to creating a robust page, but it also is kind of a quick link for navigation as you get to learn the platform and it shows you what places you need to go to take those things off your list. So that's overview tab in a nutshell. And then really the most important one that I think you're going to be spending most of your time on as we kind of, get oriented on the new platform is just the organization page tab. And so this is where we can make edits to what is showing on that front-facing organization page for our donors to be able to see. So one of the first most important things is this little toggle here. So if this edit mode toggle is off and I go and I look at my organization page, I'll be like, why can't I figure out how I make edits, right? And so you'll notice all of those little pencil icons and anything that I went interactive with are not there. So if you have that experience, note to self, probably need to scroll up and turn on edit mode on the page. And now you can see, right, that this page is now a lot more interactive. I see icons next to certain elements that prompt me to think if I click on that, I likely can edit that certain area. So that's kind of our first step is to click on edit mode. One other thing, if you don't want to have a screen that kind of is a side-by-side look like this, it is helpful if you click this little, you can expand that sidebar and that way you have more view of the actual page that you want to look at, which is also helpful for the demo today. So you can see everything that I'm poking around on. So we won't go into all of these sections for purposes of time, and I want to make sure we have plenty of time for Q&A, but wanted to hit on a couple things on your organization page that you can turn on and turn off. Most of them you probably have experience with. It just looks a little bit different over here. So again, all of these little gray icons that have now appeared are my signal that I can interact with them and I can start making adjustments to those particular areas. So let's say that I wanted to set a new cover image. If I click on that little icon here, I can see the option where, maybe it's not so much I want to change the cover image, but maybe I want to put a cover over, I want to put an overlay, so a color on top of it. If I click that, I can go forward with that option. Or maybe I want to change my banner image, which then I can select that and I can upload a new image to live in that section. Similarly, with my logo, I could upload a new image, or, maybe I have, if there's a white backdrop, I could hide that white backdrop so then it's see-through and I kind of see more of the image behind it. So I would encourage you, to just take some time to, first we want to register, right? Get ourselves approved. But then second, maybe schedule, a little bit of time in your calendar for like an hour to come in here and just poke around your page and just get creative with it. There really isn't anything you could do that would be so detrimental that you need to be afraid of clicking and just seeing what something does, right? And then making adjustments if it feels relevant to what you're trying to do right now. Some other things that we could do. So this fundraise button here is where if I, wanted to support your organization and create a peer-to-peer fundraiser on your behalf, I would click that fundraise button and I would start to build my fundraiser page. If for some reason that doesn't align with your strategy right now and it's not something that you want to offer, if I click this little announcement button, I can actually turn off the fundraise button on my page. So again, probably not something the vast majority of you will do because if we think about, right, what are best practices in fundraising? It's trying to get the message out to the largest audience that we can. And so allowing peer-to-peer fundraisers for the most part is going to be very advantageous for your organization. But if for some reason maybe you are brand new and you're just getting started out and you want to do, small building blocks this year and then really kind of ramp up what you're doing in year two, maybe turning off the fundraise button is more relevant to your campaign. So that option lives there. And then some other things let's poke around with. Again, we don't need to go through absolutely everything, but if I click on, let's say, the pencil icon next to where my metrics live, this is where I can decide, what lives in that metrics bar. So maybe amount raised. Maybe we don't usually highlight our donor count just because it's not a stat that we typically show to the audience. So I can turn on or off these metrics depending on what it is that I think is most important that I would like to show my audience. Similarly, I don't, we can turn on or off, whether offline donations would be included in this total. And then we can figure out how we want our metrics to show on our page. So for most of you who are participating in Midlands Gives, but also year-round fundraising, you might want, and this is where it becomes optional for you as the organization. So you can decide, do I want my metrics to show what I have raised in its entirety while I have been, fundraising through Mightycause/Midlands, or do I only want to show, what I've fundraised so far in 2026? Those are options that you have as the admin. I will say with an asterisk that our plan is that when donations early giving starts for Midlands Gives on April 1st, I will run a script in the back end that will update everyone who is approved to participate in the event so that your stats will only show April 1st moving forward in the event. Again, fundraising best practice. If I am a donor, I show up to give to you during early giving and I see that you've raised $841,000 already, I might be less compelled to give, right? Because I'm like, this org's doing really well. Like, let me go find somebody that has raised a lot less, right? So that's the psychology behind why on April 1st we are going to wipe out your stats and essentially show $0 raised, zero donors, and that will continue to grow as donations relevant to Midlands Gives come in. So just know that that's happening on the 1st. What you as an organization decide to do until April 1st is up to you. And that can be, again, configured with this pencil icon right next to your metrics. And you can decide, what's the length of time of when those donations should be counting on my page. And then another section here on your organization page, your about section, right? And so this is really kind of the meat of what a donor is going to be looking at when they decide, is this an organization that I want to support? What are they doing? And, how much do I want to give? So this about section, right, is where we're talking about, what your organization is. What are you doing in the community? Specifically, what are you fundraising for right now? So I, as a donor, are better informed about what my dollars are doing and how I am helping you to be able to, do your work in the community. So very similar probably to a lot of content editors that you've seen on different websites that you've interacted with. So again, any updates that you make here, just make sure that you click save afterwards. You will notice that a couple different places on the Mightycause platform will require you to actually click a save button and some will auto save by default. So I would just say like good rule of thumb as you're getting oriented with a new platform is let's say I've made some edits, look around and see if there's a save button close. If there is, click that save button. If there's not, it's likely something that is going to auto save, but this sometimes does become a sticking point for some admins that they don't realize that they have to click save when they've updated their content. So keep that in mind. The other cool thing that you can do on the Mightycause platform is that you can decide if you want to enable another custom tab that lives on your organization page. So if I enable that custom tab, I can rename that custom tab to something else. And then if I click inside of it, I can add content into that custom tab. So oftentimes when I'm talking to nonprofit administrators about, what would be the use case for this? So first thing I'll say is if you're here and you're like, that's a lot of content, you don't have to do this. So this is totally optional. If you have a reason to do it, please use the custom tab. If you don't, just focus on making sure that this about section is really, powerful, tells your mission and compels that donor to give and gives them the information they need. Some of you might be like me, where you're like, everything I know about my organization is important. I want everybody to know it, and I think that it is awesome, and I want to put everything in front of them, right? So this might be a scenario where when a donor scrolls through your page, the About tab is going to show by default. So I would encourage you that the most important kind of condensed version of your story that is going to take that donor from reading to donating lives on this About tab. Anything else that you would like to put in front of that donor and allow them to opt into reading more about your organization should live on this custom tab. So maybe we have this more condensed about message over here, and then I have a custom tab that says learn more. And over here is where I talk about, my full organization history. Maybe I highlight some really awesome initiatives that we've had happening within the last year. Maybe I have a highlight about my board members or, other really important things that I am having a hard time trimming away from my story, but I recognize might not be like the most important selling point to get that donor from reading to donating. So again, maybe it might not be useful to everyone, but for those of you who do feel like you have a lot of compelling content you want to put there, I would encourage, most basic kind of, again, streamline how am I going to get them from start to finish and live on the About tab, knowing that if they want to take a little bit more time, read a little bit more about your org, they can opt into the second tab to read whatever you put here. So kind of cool ability for those of you who have more things that you would like to say. And then, kind of in general, you will notice as you go through, and let's actually hide this. As we scroll down on the organization page, you'll see some sections that might look like this. And so should signal to you that there is a section of content that I can add to my page if I would like to. And so some of you might try to keep a really short and sweet organization page. So you might just say, all I want is my header image, my logo, my stats up here at the top. I have my content, and then, that's all that I want to have on my page because we want to keep it short and sweet and get people to donate as quick as possible. Some of you might have a use case for wanting to add some of these kind of additional bells and whistles to your page. So again, encourage you to just be brave and to click some buttons and then remove them if you're like, I actually don't want that. So if I click on this featured campaign section, you can see that right now I now have a whole new content partial that's been added to my organization page. If I decided I wanted it to go away, I click that pencil icon again, I click hide section, and now it's gone. So kind of as simple as that. I'll go back into what these sections are in a second, but wanted to kind of show you in general, how am I adding things? How am I removing things? So it's as simple as just clicking the plus and then removing it if you decide you don't want it there anymore. So self-explanatory here, we do have a giving activity section. And so this section, if your organization decides that you want to show it, would show the donors and the donation amounts that were given to your organization through your Mightycause organization page. So some notes that I wanted to kind of highlight and draw attention to specifically when it comes to this section is one, some organizations, it's not your strategy and it's not typically your policy to show what donors have given to your organization page. And so that's why this is optional. So you can decide on the organization level to actually say, hide this section. It's not something we have typically done. Our donors would not like that. So if that is the case, I would just say hide that giving activity area. If you're an organization that's like, actually, we really like that because we have a lot of donors who reach out to us to say, did my gift go through? Did my gift go through? Right? This can answer, that can make that more streamlined for you. So now as a donor, I can come here and I can say, oh, there I am. I gave, $500 to this fundraising campaign associated with your org. And now I don't have to reach out to the nonprofit via, call or anything to confirm that my gift was successful because I see my name listed here on this donor wall. Questions that I can already proverbially hear you all asking is like, what does this mean for donor anonymity, right? So for Midlands Gives, your donors will have the option, three different anonymity options. So they could decide one, to just hide their name from the public, but allow their donation amount to show. If that was the case, and again, this is demo, so like how am I gonna just be able to find one? Oh, here we are, yay. So here's an example of what that could look like. So I can see, the donor went through the process, said, hide my name from the public, and now on the donor wall, you see anonymous gave $100. So again, still gives me a little bit of recognition, but nobody actually knows that it was me who made that gift, right? Another option that the donor could do is that they could decide to hide their donation amount, but allow their name to be shown. So I'm going to just have you use your imagination here. Imagine that this says Riley Baker, and then it just doesn't have gave 1,000 after it. So gives me as the donor recognition, but doesn't show everyone publicly how much I actually donated. The third option is donating fully anonymously. And so that might be where the donor has decided to give to your organization, but they don't want the public to know who they are and they don't want to give their information to you as the organization. And so that might be a scenario where someone shows on the wall, but it just shows as an anonymous gift. So I say all of this because, again, there might kind of be two schools when it comes to nonprofit admins listening to me right now. One half might be saying, no, not our best practice. We don't show this ever. Then hide this partial from your wall. The other might be saying, oh, we'd be fine with showing it as long as we're sure that the donor has their own decision-making process to decide what about them shows on the activity wall. That conversation we just had shows you that, any donor anonymity settings that donor selects will be respected when it comes here to this wall. So really just kind of comes down to whether or not you typically show or don't show this content. And mentioning this, that while we do typically encourage, nonprofits, at least, let's say, and Midlands, you can jump in if I'm giving a best practice that's not yours, but I usually say, at least a week before you really start, broadcasting your page out to the public, get your page as finalized as you possibly can, right? And that way you make sure that when donors land on your page, they're seeing exactly what you want them to see. But there isn't technically a date on Mightycause where you can no longer make adjustments. So let's say that it's April 5th and I have decided to show my giving activity feed. I've had a lot of donations come in from the 1st into the 5th. And then I start to get a lot of feedback from donors that are like, I actually don't want my name showing publicly. And your board members are like, yeah, this might not have been the best decision. You can come in here on the fly and then remove this section from your page. So just know again that while you can make edits in real time while campaigns are happening, again, best practice is always getting these things done in advance, but knowing that if you needed to make an adjustment because your decision might have not been what, was best for the group, you can come in here and then change some things. And then some of the last sections on this page I want to draw attention to quick are, media gallery. That's, again, something that most people understand and don't really have a lot of common questions about. This is the ability for you to just add more images to your page. So while you can up here in your About section add images, we all know what it feels like to be like, let's say Microsoft Word, right? And you're trying to add an image here and here, and you're putting text over here. And then at the end, you're like, what did I do? Like, this is just too much content going on, right? Like, I would encourage you, if there's anything really important, engaging image that you want to put in your story section, that's great. But sometimes that can become too much, right? Where like the donor is now trying to like hop around where your language might be, pictures are in the way. So I would say coming down into this media gallery section is also a really great place if there are just some like really, high definition images from like a local event you might have run or from one of the programs that you sponsor. Like use this section to be able to highlight that because again, it just adds more of a personal touch to your organization page, brings that donor in and allows them to have more of that emotional connection to be able to see the things that you're doing, but doesn't necessarily have to gum up the section where you're trying to give them, content about what your organization is and why they should support you. And then the last sections here that I wanted to talk about, because we get a lot of questions about these, are what is the difference between a featured campaign section and then a supporting campaign section? So these both have to do with peer-to-peer fundraising pages that are created either by, an outside user. So where I, Natalie, come to your org and I'm like, oh, maybe you're an animal shelter and I adopted my dog from you. I create my own peer-to-peer fundraiser page. Or it could be something where maybe your organization has like a drill down program that you run that you want to have reflected as like a fundraising page that way donors can give to a separate area. So either of those pages apply to what I'm about to show you. So this first section called featured campaigns is something that you as the organization admin have to maintain if you decide to use it on your page. So this is where, and it's called featured campaigns for a reason, you can actually come in and you can, so let's say if I were to remove one of these, confirm, and I should come down here. If I click on one of the open boxes, I can search for a peer-to-peer fundraiser campaign that I know is associated with my organization, and I can feature them in this area. So you might be thinking to yourself, why would I want to do this versus the other section? So I will answer that by also explaining the other section. So this area called supporting campaigns works by default. So every time a peer-to-peer fundraiser page is created associated with your organization and has been published, it will automatically show in this section. So this is one of those, I add it to my page, I forget it, and the site will constantly update it as new peer-to-peer fundraiser pages are created and published. Versus this section is something that once you add it, you as the admin are going to be maintaining what lives up here. Why might you use these separately? Let's say that you have a really big push this year to get your board members more engaged and you want to highlight those board member peer-to-peer fundraisers. This is a great kind of way to have, they'll show here along with all of your other peer-to-peers, but they'll also show in this more kind of like higher section that is called featured campaigns that has this different kind of color background. And again, it's a way to kind of highlight something that might be a little bit different, a little bit more important, and you want to make it a little bit more like visually engaging to your donors to be able to see versus kind of the whole entire group of peer-to-peer fundraisers. So again, might be board member campaigns, or if you do go the route where you have, fundraiser pages created that represent like internal programs, like maybe that's how you use it instead. So up here are the more programmatic fundraisers that you have created internally as an organization, but down here are all the like true peer-to-peer fundraisers where you have users come and, creating pages to help share your organization mission. So two kind of different schools of thought of how you can use them. You don't have to use both of them. You can use one, you can use both, you can use none, but wanted to explain that's usually something that's a little bit different and that we get some common questions about. So hopefully that is helpful. And then again, let's say that I've added it and decided I don't want it there anymore. I can go ahead, hide that section, and now everything is gone. So, main kind of recap of this is, once we've logged in, we're on our org page. This organization page tab is where we're going to spend a lot of our time right now, turning on edit mode and then going through and making sure that everything is really updated, has my correct, logo, my correct images, tells the story that I think is relevant right now. And then the other caveat being that if you need to make adjustments on the fly, this page doesn't turn itself off. It can be edited at any time as you go throughout the campaign. And then some other things that I wanted to chat through. So obviously, we're carrying two different thoughts in our brain. So you have been migrated over for those of you who are returning organizations, and you have the ability, right, to be able to fundraise and use your page until registration closes. At which point, if you have not registered yourself, you will be removed from the platform, right? So that's also a reminder for those of you that even if you were approved on the previous platform and you've been migrated over, you're seeing your page show up in search, you're able to accept donations, you still have to register before registration is closed, or your page will be removed from Midlands Gives. So that's where the overview page again comes into play, where I can see that special note reminding me, what's my registration status? Am I good to go for this upcoming year? But so yes, we're thinking about obviously getting ready for the upcoming campaign, but we also have donations that are open right now, right? So I don't want to just kind of leave you and not talk about some things that are relevant to donations, even though, early giving for the event is still a little bit out. But so for those of you who do have a page that is up right now that are planning on actively fundraising right now before Midlands Gives starts, I also wanted to draw attention to this checkout area that lives on your dashboard. So if we come into checkout and we come to our donation form, this is where you can make a couple adjustments when it comes to the donation form that is presented to donors as they go through that donation process for your org. So we see here the ability to set, preset suggested donation levels for your donors to be able to see, and also the ability to add a description that is optional if I wanted to. So, in some cases you might be able to, generically say, maybe $15 helps us feed a cat for a week, right? But like you're not actually feeding a cat for a week, but it gives the donor an explanation of like, what can a donation of this size do for my organization? Similarly, again, this is totally optional. So if I take this out and then click save, then you would just see, the donation amount would be there instead. So you can set up to 4 donation amounts that will be here. And also knowing that, and this is just kind of a preview of what the donation form will look like, so that way you have a visual. If the donor decided to go through the process and they didn't like any of the preset levels you suggested, they can always come down and set their own donation amount. So just keep that in mind. I would encourage those of you who have participated participated in Midlands Gives in the past, even if you're new and you have had some sort of, online fundraising experience before, I would encourage you to look at those donation reports that you have, and maybe see if you can run a average, right? An average gift that donors have given to you, and then build these donation levels around that average gift. That's one kind of strategy thing that we talk to a lot of nonprofit admins about is like, you play a line here of, you don't want to undersell how much donors can give to you, but you don't want to intimidate them right off the bat by having these really large donation levels that they're like, oh, this organization wants a minimum gift of like $1,000. What does my $10 do right now, right? So we need to consider the whole span of donors that typically give to your page. And so again, a way to kind of tie data into real life fundraising best practices is looking at those donation reports that you have, running what is that average gift amount, what is the high spread, what is the low spread, and then building these four levels kind of around what those donors typically do. So just a kind of a good recommendation. Another thing that you can do as a nonprofit when it comes to your donation form here is that Midlands Gives as a whole does allow donors the option to be able to give recurring gifts if they want to. If you, as an individual organization, for any particular reason, that does not align with what your, strategy is, you could click the gear icon here, and then you could decide to hide that recurring option in that way. And you can just see it as a preview here; it's grayed out, but you could turn off recurring giving if you wanted to. Again, I don't think that that's probably something that you need to do, but if you had that kind of one-off use case where you're like, that just doesn't work for us, you could turn off recurring giving directly just for your organization, and that allows every other org, right, can still do it. So it's an org by org decision if you would want to turn that off. And then another thing that lives here under checkout. So that's kind of so step one, if we're thinking about what's priority, right? Is first priority is getting yourself registered, because none of this matters if you haven't registered yourself. So register yourself for Midlands Gives. Spend some time looking over your organization page, making sure that your content is how you want it to. And then next is thinking about what is that donor experience going to be after they have reviewed my page, right? So that's why we're coming into the donation form, setting these levels, making that decision about recurring gifts. We can come down here into this thank you page area. And so this is the thank you page that will pop up for your donors to be able to see after they have made a successful donation to your organization. So think about really like any kind of online payment that we all do, right? Like we're all looking to see that page after we click submit to be like, it went through, right? And if we don't see that page, then we're often kind of going back, looking at our bank statements, making sure that it says that we were charged successfully. So this is an important page, not only to give donors a confirmation, but also a great first touch point that your organization has with that donor to thank them for the gift that they made. So this will show automatically in screen. So I've made my gift, and then it goes from kind of that payment page to the confirmation page. And so if I make a single gift to your organization, then I would see just your organization's thank you message. If I, as a donor, made a cart donation to, let's say, 5 organizations, then I would see 5 different thank you messages as long as the organization added one. So I don't want to pressure you, but let's say in that scenario, 4 organizations put a thank you message, your organization didn't. I might look at that page and be like, why is the organization not thanking me the way that everybody else did? So a little bit of peer pressure to say that this is a good thing to go through and add, because you want to make sure that other organizations have a thank you message. So do you. So again, similar text editor to what you have seen. You can add images if you want. Let's say maybe you have a thank you video that you've generically had, or maybe it's a thank you image where a bunch of your staff are holding up, signs that say thank you for giving. You could add an image on this page if you would like to. So again, just a really great kind of like first touch point that really doesn't require a lot of work from you as the admin. After you add this message, it just keeps coming into play every time somebody hits that page. So again, a personal touch that just makes that donor feel like you cared and you took that extra step to really, connect with them. And then the other thing on this page is this button. So some options that you have is the button says view our page, and there's 2 different ways you can use it. By default, if you leave it as a default button and I, as the donor, click that view our page, it will actually just bring me back to your Midlands Gives page that's hosted on Mightycause. Again, right, kind of we're always trying to keep that donor engaged, right? So it's not only make a gift, but like how do I stay informed and stay engaged with that organization? Another option you have is that you can use it as a custom button, where then you can add your own custom button text, and then you could add a URL. So maybe you want it to say learn more, and then it links out to your year-round organization. You're outside of Midlands Gives profile. So you can use this button in a couple different ways. Again, the main thought of keeping donors engaged with your organization beyond just making that gift, and how do we keep them moving forward with us? So that's your thank you page. And then last but not least is our donation receipt. And so this is where you can add, custom messaging. So there will obviously on the receipt be overall receipt message that is applicable to Midlands Gives and just that donation at large. But individually, there is also a bit on that receipt that will include any kind of custom text from the organization themselves, as long as it is that single gift, right? If I'm a donor and I make 10 gifts in my cart, I'm not going to see 10 different messages and have a CVS level receipt. But if it is that individual gift, then I'll see that receipt message here. So I can add the receipt message and then I can preview the receipt here as well. And then if I wanted to, I could also send a test receipt to myself. That way you can see, if that, how you formatted everything looks how you want it to when it comes to the donor. Perfect. And I know we have some questions coming through, and I promise I'm going to answer them. They are good questions, and I'm going to actually talk about something right now that I think is relevant, Amy, to what you are asking. So, right, we talked about registering, building out our page. What should I do as far as, configuring settings about how the donor sees my donation form? What can they do? How are they thanked afterwards? And then probably a really big question for you all is how is the money actually getting to us as an organization? And that's a very good question. So down here in your settings, you will see disbursement settings. And this is where your organization is deciding how are these gifts given to me through my Midlands Gives profile going to get to me as the organization. So I believe we have some language on the nonprofit FAQ page that talks about this. I think there's also language on the actual nonprofit like resources page that talks about this, but I will reiterate here as well. On the Mightycause platform, you have two different options for how you receive your disbursements. By default, if you were to do nothing at all, you will receive a check once a month for all donations received on the platform, and it will go directly to the legal address on file that you have with the IRS. And that is our kind of fail-safe to make sure that any donations that come through have a space to be able to go, even if your nonprofit doesn't give us more information than that. So I will say if you do nothing, you will receive that check. Again, comes once monthly. It takes all the donations from the month before, puts it into one check, is sent to that legal address on file with the IRS. And there is, to note, a $5 service fee that comes with that, just because it is the writing of the check, the sending out. So that's something to keep in mind. The faster way and the free way is to set up electronic funds transfer to you be able to receive your disbursements directly through direct deposit into the bank account for your organization. So if you come in here to your disbursement settings tab, you can set up your direct deposits to come through here. So we can see the ability to switch to direct deposits with EFT. And this is where you would put in, your routing number, your account number, and then you would go through the next steps to set up that payment or that disbursement method to come to your organization. So some things about EFT is that, and we have it here as well, but those disbursements then come twice monthly. And so you get your funds faster, and you get this disbursement method is also free. So I'm going to probably get this incorrectly, so don't tie me to it, but you will get your disbursements on the 10th and the 25th of each month. The 10th of the month is for donations that were for like the last half of the previous month, and then the 25th of the month is for the donations that were at the first half of this month. So if you think about it, right, kind of how you're always getting the disbursement for something that happened before that. So again, it's outlined here, it's outlined on the FAQ page so you can see it, but two main nuances is the checks are going to be once a month, and there's a $5 fee, goes to your legal address on file, or electronic funds transfer. You get it faster, you get it twice a month, and then it's free. So there's no service fee associated with it. So that's helpful for that. And I saw a question that kind of relates to recurring donations is how do we get those? So similarly, if you were to be having a donor who has recurring donations, every time that recurring donation is kind of activated, it would just be included in whatever that upcoming disbursement is that would, be batching those gifts together and then sending them out to you. Um, and then something else I do want to show you. So again, it becomes a little bit more relevant when we have early giving opening. But for those of you who are really pushing your pages now and getting donations, if we come up here into this reports section, lots of different reports that are available to you. And we'll probably dive into these a little bit more in webinar number 2. But for today, we'll gloss over it kind of quickly. This donation report is going to show you all of the donations that you received through the Mightycause platform. Note that it does default to the last 30 days. So if there's something that you want to see, because we did, for those of you who are returning, we migrated your donation history into this new profile. So if you wanted to see, donations that happen from a different time, you could come in here, change that time period, and maybe set it to like the last year. Or you could come in here into a custom date range, and let's say that I wanted to specifically look at donations from like 2020, then I could set, I could go back in years and I could set that time. So just know that just because you don't see it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. You just need to scope that time frame to look at a more accurate period. So this is where we can see donations that have come through, really high level overview of what you need to know like in the moment. So I can see the donor name, I can see the amount, the date, what type of gift was it? Did it come, what campaign? Did it come through a giving event or maybe a fundraiser? And what was the email of that donor? If I come over here and I download, that's going to give me a full comprehensive donation report. And so, if what I'm really trying to look at is, what fees were processed on that donation, then that full comprehensive report is going to give me the breakdown of, what was the platform fee? What was the credit card fee? Did they cover the fee? What did I actually get versus what they gave? So like that full report will have that. Or maybe you're looking for the donor, addresses because you want to send out personalized thank you cards in the mail to where they live. That's going to be included there. So common question is, why am I not seeing the donor address? Well, download that full report and all of that kind of information would be included in that larger report. So that's your donation report. Again, we'll dive into that a little bit more in probably webinar 2. Really quick touch. Let's say that you wanted to just see, because I saw a question too about, how do we know what recurring donations were set up? Here on this recurring donations tab is where I can see all of the active recurring donations that are currently scheduled and happening for my organization. So this is a really great way for you to be able to manage and look at, what's active right now, how many have canceled in this period that I have it scoped to, what's the total amount of recurring donations that we have expected, and then you can see also, what's the date that it started, what date does it renew on. So this is, drilling down your regular donation report into something that's more specific just for those recurring gifts. So helpful for those of you who leave that on. Your retention report, which again, we will talk about this really a lot more in depth in webinar number 2, but this is the ability to, again, if you were migrated over from the previous platform to this one, your ability to compare a certain period of time. So let's say that, I'm getting ready for Midlands Gives 2026, and I want to look at any donors who gave last year who have not given yet this year, and then I want to send out a targeted email just to that group of individuals. I could manipulate the settings in this report to be able to pull that report, and then I could just have a list of contacts that I need to send out an email because they haven't given to me yet in this period compared to a previous period of time. So helpful report that we'll talk a little bit more when we talk about fundraising strategy. And then last but not least that I want to talk about in the report section is your disbursements. And so, of course, because this is demo, there is nothing here for me to be able to show you. So let's use our imagination. So in this disbursements area is where you will be able to see all disbursements that your organization has received from the Mightycause platform. So regardless of whether you choose a check or if you choose direct deposit as your disbursement method, you would see a report here that outlines, the date that that disbursement was sent to you, the total that was in that disbursement, the method. So was it check or was it EFT? You would see the status. So is it pending or has it already been sent and completed? And then you'd be able to see who it was dispersed by. If you clicked on that line, it would actually open up into a complete breakdown of all of the donations that are included in that disbursement. So that's also really helpful for teams that are looking to compare for, their reconciliation period of, it looks like we received this much during this time, but let's make sure that that actually all came over to us. You would be able to see a line by line printout of every single donation included in that lumped disbursement. And then at the very bottom, there actually is a section that shows you a breakdown of fees. So that's a common question we get sometimes from nonprofits. They'll say, we thought that we raised $10,000, right, between the 1st and the 10th of the month. Why did the disbursement I received on the 25th, why was that for like $8,432? in that section of the disbursement report that you can see, it would actually show you, what was the total platform fees applied to those donations? What was the total credit card fees applied to those donations? How many fees were actually covered by the donor? And then what's the breakdown of the math to get you to that final result? So it should answer all of those questions that you have as far as, what was included in the disbursement, why is it larger or actually less than what I was expecting, and how did those fees play out? So that will become very helpful. And again, it will be there regardless of whether you choose EFT or check. But I find that to be really helpful because it's that one-stop shop for your organization. Every time you receive a disbursement, you just come in here and you can look at, your disbursements over time. So that will be helpful once you start to receive those from Mightycause. And then I know we are about over time, and I'm not surprised because there's a lot of content to cover. So give me like 2 more minutes, and then for those of you who have time to stay on and do Q&A, appreciate it. If you have to drop off and you have questions, if you send those to the Midlands team, they will flag them with me, and we'll make sure we get answers to you. But one of the other important things that I really wanted to address, so if we come in here to settings on your page, and then come in here to your admins, really, 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 right, really important to make sure that only the correct people have access to your organization page for Midlands Gives. When we migrated over your profiles from the past platform to this one, your admins were migrated as well. We know that there's a lot of turnover, right, when it comes to not only just working in the nonprofit space, but it also could be turnover as far as like who on your team is managing your campaign this year versus who managed it last year. So remember, people with access to your organization page, for the most part, also have access to your donor data, and that is really, really important that we only keep that in the hands of people that need to have access to that, right? So I would encourage you, every so often to come through here, and if there's someone that's listed that is no longer, on your team at all at your organization, or maybe they work for your org but they have nothing to do with Giving Day anymore, come in here and remove them from your list of administrators. Similarly, if there's anyone that needs to be added, you can go in there, and at the top right, you can actually add an administrator as well. So that is probably one of the most important things once you have registered and accessed your organization page is coming into settings, and before you do anything else, look at your admins, clean up anybody who shouldn't be in there. That way you can make sure you're, really protecting your donor data and that they can, trust how everything is being managed. But that was a lot, and it was a lot, but it's not bad. I think you're really going to enjoy your experience over on Mightycause. Again, I think that it's really intuitive once you get into the platform and you start to poke around. I will admit that I am sure that there are nuances between your last platform and this current platform. So you're going to run into things where you have questions. This is where we're going to talk about the resources and support really quickly. So the Midlands teams have had been really hard at work to put together nonprofit, toolkits and resources for you to be able to utilize so that way you can have more success. So, coming into this for nonprofits area on the website, maybe looking at, what trainings are available, what's in the nonprofit toolkit, frequently asked questions, those types of things. So that's a really great first place to check for answers to your questions or, resources to help you be successful. And the second place is actually reaching out to our Mightycause support team. So when it comes to the people that are behind the scenes and wanting to make sure that you have the best experience possible in the Midlands Gives kind of universe, whether that's year-round giving or it's specific for, Midlands Gives event, you have obviously the Community Foundation team that are going to be really that like best team for you to reach out when it comes to strategy or when it comes to something that's like more about the Community Foundation or like the overall event itself. When it comes to, I'm on the back end of my platform and I can't remember what that lady told me about where I'm supposed to go to do this particular thing. That's a great question for the Mightycause support team, right? We live in the technical world. We have an entire team of people behind the scenes that want to answer your questions when it comes to how to use your organization dashboard. How do you use different settings? How do I maybe fix something that I did accidentally? So make sure you can reach out to our customer support team. So we can be reached via email at support@mightycause.com. We're available Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern. So you can either email us, or a really cool tool that we have is, so let's say, right, every page that you're on, whether it's front facing or kind of this behind the scenes admin look, has this little question mark that follows you around. What's cool is that this is actually a smart support center. So it knows what page you're on when you click that, and it's automatically going to start by suggesting some articles that are relevant relevant to the page that you're on. So in some cases, this might answer your question right away, right? So it's telling me here, how do I add or remove admins to my page? I can click on that and then I can read a support article of what do I actually even do on this page. I might see something about my organization dashboard. Similarly, if I switch over to recurring donations and if all goes as planned in the demo environment, which we all know how things go when you're trying to show something live, now it should be giving me, yes. So how do I manage recurring donations? What's donation management in my reports? So it's automatically trying to help you. Something else you can do is you can type in a question. This is actually going to search the entire database we have of support articles to be able to give you, things that are helpful towards that question you asked. So that is good. And then the other thing you can do is if you click on this contact, then that actually also gives you a method to be able to reach out to our customer support team rather than going directly to email. So lots of different ways to reach us depending on what you're trying to do, but hopefully that's helpful. And then another thing you can do is actually just support.mightycause.com. And this is our full list of like all support articles that are available. The one thing I will say is that we obviously support nonprofits participating in a giving event, but also nonprofits who use us for year-round fundraising. So some of the articles you find might be like less giving event specific, and it might talk about like the Mightycause version of your page. So keep in mind that like some of the content is going to be like 100% accurate. Some of it might be like 90%, depending on like how nuanced of an article you find yourself in. But again, really helpful space if you're the kind of person that prefers to like find an answer for yourself before you reach out to somebody else. So wanted to show you that. And then the last thing that I will note before Q&A, which thank you all for staying on the line, is so in summary, with everything this lady told me to do, what's most important right now, right? So number one, register to participate by March 1st, right? Because that's the most important thing that we need to do. Yes, and we need to also make sure when we go through registration that I read those nuanced instructions depending on my organization type, so I'm most set up for success. So that is first thing to do. The second is once you have been registered and you have been officially approved, go in and update your organization page administrators so only the correct people have access to your data. Next is go through and customize your organization page. And if you're planning on really pushing your page right now to get, year-round fundraising, go through those little checkout and, donation settings that we touched on today. After that, utilize the resources in your nonprofit toolkit so you don't feel like you have to, reinvent the wheel and do things from scratch. There are email templates in there, social media templates. There are downloadable graphics that you can use for things. So that's really a great kind of resource for you as the nonprofit admin as you plan. And then last but not least, sign up for our webinar on February 26th. And so that's where we're going to do more of a deep dive into what are the peer-to-peer fundraising options on Mightycause, what's best practices for, maybe a team fundraising page versus an individual fundraising page. How do I set up matches? How do I utilize that donor retention report? So, today was the welcome open house of, you're here, how do you poke around? And then the next one is really going to be 2.0. Okay, now that you're comfortable, how do I utilize these features that are available to me? So, that was everything that I have. So thank you all for staying longer than you should have. I don't know if Midlands team wants to say anything, and then I'll stay on as long as people have questions that are still coming in, or if you want me to go ahead and just start taking questions now, which is totally fine too.
Sure. The only thing I want to say is Aaron and myself have put this link in the chat just to remind you of where you can register for the upcoming trainings, and then you can review the trainings that have already occurred. So please take a look at that before you go. And then thank you again so much for participating today. And I would love, Natalie, if you could, we've got still questions in the chat to be answered. Thank you.
Awesome. Cool. So yeah, let me go ahead and dive into the questions that I see. So first question that we have is I manage Midlands Gives for two organizations. Can I use the same email and password to log into both as previously? Yes, you can. So it sounds like you have done this in the past, you just need to follow the instructions, right? Before you go to register them, you're going to reset your password that's associated with the email address you've always used. And then once you go through registration for both of those organizations, you can manage them with that same user account. So you don't need to, if you are a case where you are one admin managing multiple multiple orgs, you don't need to have individual user accounts for each of them. You can do that all through one user account. And then that would look something like, and I can try to go back, but when we were looking at how it appears once you have logged in and you want to access those organizations, under this organization area would just show, Our House Inc. and Animal Care Sanctuary. So you would just see in your user menu every organization you manage. So you just want to make sure that as you're clicking in and out of them, that you remember what page you're editing. So you're putting the right content in there. But yes, you can use one, user account to manage multiple organizations. Great answer. Or great question. Perfect. And then, okay, so we have, does anyone use this platform as their fundraising and donor management platform? Some of these features are better than the platform we use now. If we were going to use this for Midlands Gives, do we just use this for everything? That is totally up to you. I am not here as a salesperson, right? Like I am here to support you from the project management side of Midlands Gives. If you get over here to Mightycause, you start poking around, you start to understand the features that are here and available to you, and they work better than the current platform that you are on to manage your, CRM and other types of things, please, by all means, invest more into, not invest more financially, but like get yourself more involved with Mighty Cause and use us for your kind of year-round management of everything that you're doing for your fundraising efforts. Again, not here to sell it and say that you have to, but if you get over here and you're really enjoying what is available to you, we absolutely do have nonprofits that utilize us for really the full, like front to end of their fundraising efforts because they enjoy the features that we have available. So we also do have, some people on our team, and I'm going to call them salespeople, even though they're not going to be trying to sell you something. But I live more on the giving event side of the house, right? So like I focus on the features you need for that really like time-based fundraising. But we do have other team members that work with nonprofits when it comes more to like how to utilize our full suite for like really like full engagement and year-round fundraising. And so if you got yourself in a situation where you're like, I love this and I just need to know like how do I take that next step, you can reach out to our customer support team and say, hey, this is who I am, this is what I'm interested in learning, and we'll make sure you get connected with the right person on the Mighty Cause team to talk through that. But yes, definitely. My hope is that everyone comes over, loves it so much that it solves a lot of your needs, but also not in a position where I'm telling you that you need to, jump ship from where you're currently at. Another great question. So we have last year there was supposed to be character limits on the profile, but many organizations had gone over the limits. Will they be updated and used across the board this year? So if we do have any character limits when it comes to, let's see, I think I was on this tab when I did it before. No, I was here. If we do have any character limits in locations, those would really clearly be presented to you as you're going into a certain place to be able to make adjustments. So I think we have right here, we have characters, we have a 5,000 character limit when it comes to like the about section on the page. If you were to have a character limit and you don't have one for the title, but maybe on the thank you page, anywhere where there is one, it will show you what the character limit is. And from my experience working over here, the character limit usually is true and there isn't necessarily a way to like go beyond it. I'm not sure if I'm answering your question appropriately, but if you have more questions than that about that one, let me know. But yes, there are some areas where there are character limits. They are kind of enforced if they are there. But anything that you would have had on your previous profile would have been copied over. And if there would have been a character limit issue, we would have probably reached out to the Midlands teams and nothing about that was flagged with me. So I think we're set there. Good question from Norma. Will this video be shared with us through email? That is up. I'm not sure. It looks like we have some. Yes. Yes, the Midlands Gives
Absolutely.
team. Once I have it uploaded and everything is good in YouTube, I will share that link with them. And then it sounds like, yes, they will be sharing that. And then I believe it will also be on that trainings page too for you to be able to easily access if that's kind of the path where you usually find this content for yourself.
That's correct. Thank you.
Awesome. Any other questions that people have? I expect probably we'll have more in webinar two just because that gets more into like the fundraising features and there might be some, nuanced differences, but also some like new functionality that you might not have had on the last platform. And so that might be a little bit more, questions going on there. But for the most part, I think you're, again, really going to, not just because I work here, I actually worked at another tech platform before I came over here in the giving event space. And so I know what's available out there. And I have found that the nonprofits nonprofits that I work with over here are just really, really happy with what that user experience looks like for you as an admin. It's just a lot cleaner, and a lot of the functionality that's there is really helpful to the point that sometimes nonprofits decide to use us for all of their year-round, fundraising initiatives and needs. So I'm really hopeful you all are really going to enjoy your experience over here. Um, but again, we're always, taking feedback too. So if you have questions or, suggestions for improvements, reaching out to our customer support team is always the best way to get your voice heard too, so that we know, what's a gap that we might need to look at to improve your experience as well. Good question from Minda. So, do electronic payment bank info have to be re-entered? Yes. So that if you did have a bank account added in the previous platform for, I would say, 1,000,001 security reasons, we did not have access to that bank account information, and we did not pull that over here into the new platform just because. You probably wouldn't have wanted that stored and then shared with another entity. So if you had something set up before, you will need to go in and set that up again. While I do acknowledge that's another step that you have to take to get yourself oriented, I think it's also a great opportunity just as like a reset on a new platform, right? To like make sure that that bank account information is correct, that it's still the place that you want, your donations going. So it won't be something that you have to do all the time. So once you come over here the first time, set up your EFT information. It's not something that you'll be doing yearly. It's really just a one-time setup unless you need to make adjustments in the future to, let's say, change to a different bank account, or if you were just want to switch back to check payment or for whatever reason. Perfect. Um, Doesn't look like we have any others in right now, so I will just go ahead and say thank you all for bearing with me. Again, I know that this went a little bit longer, so maybe I'll even carve out a little bit more time for webinar number two, since that's going to be a little bit more meaty when it comes to content. So I might adjust that and make it just slightly longer for everybody, but really appreciate the engagement today. Really, really, really great questions. Had a big group of people that joined, which is always fantastic. And really looking forward to working with everybody. If you do have questions that come up once you leave, which always happens to me in the moment, I'm like, oh, I have no questions. And I leave and I'm like, here are 40 questions I wish I would have asked. So feel free to reach out to the Midlands team and they will flag it with me if it's something that they can't answer on their own. Or again, I would, if you're on the platform, you're getting yourself registered, I would encourage you to start getting comfortable with reaching out to our customer support team as well. Again, real live people behind those emails getting responses back to you. And again, reminder of just kind of that helpful kind of live smart support center that I think for someone like me who is a little apprehensive to ask questions and wants to try to find my answer first, this is super helpful because it, again, just prompting you with answers that to questions that you might have. So whatever way works for you, we are here and happy to support you. But yeah, general reminder to everybody who's still on, give me a little bit of time and we will get that webinar uploaded into YouTube. That way we can share it out and have it on the trainings page. And probably by, I would say, like end of day today, if not midday tomorrow, we'll have the registration link for webinar number two up there as well, so that people can start getting ahead of registering for that fundraising best practices webinar. But perfect. That's really all I have. So thanks everybody for joining. Going to be a great group to work with. Already having a blast working with the Community Foundation team. So I always enjoy when we open the doors to the nonprofits and I get to, meet you all virtually. So thanks again and have a great rest of your day. Bye, everybody.